And welcome back to this week's edition of the Steele Report. My very special guest today is now the former Waterloo Police Chief, Joe Leibold, 34 years on the department, Chief, and I think I'll always call you that, even though I've known you for quite a number of years. What's it like to retire? I mean, what was that like on Friday, do you think? What's that feeling like?
I'm really looking forward to it, some time with family, just to get away. My job's high stress. It's very busy, very active, keeps me doing a lot of things, so just a little bit of a breather will be kind of nice.
Yeah, really. Now, you've been the chief almost 2 years. We'll go back and show you the video here when you were first sworn in, and your wife's there with you on that night. That's always a special time. What do you remember about that night, being sworn in after all those years as the chief of police? Yeah.
Well, it's funny. I was in the military for 9 years, and I was a Waterloo police officer several years, several promotions. My family was never at any of them. It was not an event, so to speak. Now we make more of an event of it. We have family come for sergeants, lieutenants, captains. But when I got promoted through the ranks, it wasn't really a thing. It was, here you go do your job. So my family never got to witness any of my promotions, so that was the only one they were able to be there for me and with me, and it was really kind of special.
Yeah, that was really a nice event. I had the privilege of watching your ceremony on Friday. So great to have your 90-year-old mom there from Cascade, along with your wife, Jill. And by the way, as you mentioned, your wife, Jill, also retired from her job after 3 decades on Friday, the same day you retired. A couple of your kids were there, a lot of the current and former officers, both from Waterloo and Cedar Falls. So that was truly a nice gesture toward you. When you get your gun retirement, that's kind of a special moment. So why is that important to you? And you said your mother, even in addition to your wife, as at the ceremony for that. So what does that mean to you, having your weapon?
Well, you know, it's very symbolic. It's what I've carried for a long time. So it's part of, you know, not part of who I am, but just part of what I do. It's been a tool that I've had for years. Fortunately, I've never had to use it, but it's been there, and it's just been something I've had around. I was never really a gun guy before I became in law enforcement, but this one's special to me. It's the last one I'll carry, and as a Waterloo police officer.
I was going to ask you, what's the first one? I think when I first started police covering law enforcement, it was in the Davenport. I think they were carrying 357s or something. What did you start with, and what did you end with? Yeah.
Well, I started with a 357, but it was carrying 38 plus P ammunition, so it was a little different. But I started with that only for a few months, and then within a year we had transitioned the entire department to semi-automatics. We got hired, and then they started the transition, so we just kind of missed that. But then they got us, the whole department transitioned within a year of my hire. So within a year I was carrying a Glock 40 caliber.
Okay, so you grew up in Cascade. You're one of the 3 most famous people in Cascade, along with my friend Gary Dolphin and Coach McDermott, of course. In fact, I was just in Dubuque this week for a big event launching the Gary Dolphin Scholarship. What do you remember about growing up in a small town like that? And then also when you first started, you went to Guttenberg as a police officer. Well,
you know, I do know both those men. They're a little older than me. I have a large family, and they were in classmates of my sisters. So yeah, I grew up over there. I'm far from one of the most famous people from Cascade. There's a lot of others, a few professional baseball players I could name.
There you go. Yeah.
But you know, it was typical small town life. It was, you know, I grew up in town, but I worked on a farm for a long time, and kind of got into that and realized that was a lot of work and not something I wanted to do full time. So started looking for other options.
So I want to give reference to Jeff Ryan. It's a great reporter for the Courier. He wrote a nice article on you this week, so I'm sure you appreciate that. What drew you to law enforcement, though? I remember you said you started out in the military. You were in the Army National Guard at a very young age, weren't you?
Yeah, I joined the National Guard at the age of 17. It was they had I think they still do it, a split-op program. I joined in the summer of my junior year. I went to basic training, and then the summer of my senior year, I went to advanced training. So there wasn't a lot of celebration for high school graduation. I was on my way to boot camp again. So I did both those in them 2 summers, and then I was an active member of the National Guard for 9 years, and got out of there when my kids got to the point where it was like I was getting pulled too many different directions. I didn't feel like I was fully able to invest in anything, and it was just like I need to be here. And so I focused solely on law enforcement and my family.
Very humble person, but what are you most proud of?
You know, I think I'm most proud of the relationships I built over the years. You know, I've been involved with a lot of good cases, a lot of good things, but like I said earlier, it's a people business, and I've really developed relationships with people that I would have never met. You know, you, Rick, just people in the media, people in town, community activists. I just feel that that's important. I get calls from people that I would have never met had I not done this job or came to Waterloo. So I think the relationships I built both internally and externally, I mean, some great officers I've worked with who've taught me so much. I just think that's probably the biggest thing.
And what advice do you have for your successor? What's the biggest challenge, do you think, right now?
Well, I think the biggest challenge, not department-wide, but nationally, is staffing. Unfortunately, that doesn't affect us. We are fully staffed, and we continue to maintain that with the support of our elected body. So that's a benefit. But you got to stay on that. You can't just assume you're going to stay there. And we've got good command staff in place to drive these initiatives forward and to keep things going in a positive manner. And I think we just need to be positive people.
This day and age, how do you build trust between your officers who are on the street every day and the residents they serve? That's been difficult. What's the best way to approach that, do you think?
Well, I think it's one-on-one. I mean, you see a lot about community policing programs and community policing things. To me, community policing is every stop, every initiative, every call. We're dealing with people at their worst possible times.
Yeah.
So you just need to be kind and understand that they may be having a bad day, but it's not your job to add to that. You should just be nice and try to get through things. And you can be nice and write a ticket. You can be nice and arrest someone, but just try to be kind and understand that people are people, and they're going to be emotional. They're going to have issues, and unfortunately or fortunately, we're the ones that get called for a lot of that. And when you do that, you get into high emotional situations.
Right. So I'll give you the last word here. What would you like to say to the people of Waterloo about serving their community for 34 years? That's a long time.
It's been an honor and a privilege. I cannot be more grateful for what the city has allowed me to do. I would have never dreamed when I got hired of being the chief of police. I guarantee I have several high school teachers were just as shocked as I was. But it's really been a tremendous learning experience, broadened just the scope of what I deal with and who I communicate with and how I communicate. It's just been so much of a privilege to be able to raise my family here and grow my kids. And I have 3 very successful children that are out in the world now, semi-out, they still have my cell phone. But they're out in the world doing their thing, and I'm so grateful for what Waterloo's done for me.
All right. Chief Joe Leibold, congratulations. Great career. Enjoy your retirement.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to take a break here on the Steel Report and wrap things up here in just a moment.
Nice. Wow, this is great.
And welcome back as we wrap up yet another edition of the Steel Report. Now, next week, I am scheduled to have as my guest Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds, so you won't want to miss that. And as always, thanks for watching. See you next week.